There's one thing that's defined Donald Trump's second term so far. It's that he is targeting the most vulnerable people in America. His administration has been aggressively rounding up undocumented immigrants, people who live in the shadows and enjoy few privileges in society, and deporting them, whether or not they have a criminal record. Even some legal immigrants and refugees, some of whom have fled their countries due to violence or natural disaster or some other reason beyond their control, are being stripped of their protected status. Trump's unprecedented takeover of Washington, D.C.'s police force and his decision to deploy the National Guard, the FBI, and ICE in the nation's capital is completely consistent with that agenda. Over the past week, the government has cleared out dozens of homeless encampments throughout the city, sometimes with little notice that they intend to do so. Homeless people have become a bullet point in the White House's new D.C. crime report, which the administration has been sending out daily with statistics of how many arrests were made and what actions were taken the day before. On Friday, for example, the White House says that it cleared out 25 homeless encampment sites in D.C. It adds that no arrests of homeless people have been made, but it's unclear so far what's actually going to happen to the people who lived in those encampments. At a press briefing last week previewing the administration's plans, Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt said, quote, homeless individuals will be given the option to leave the encampment, to be taken to a homeless shelter, to be offered addiction or mental health services. And if they refuse, they will be susceptible to fines or to jail time. They will be susceptible to fines or to jail time for being homeless. The president has often complained that the homeless are an eyesore on America's, quote, once beautiful cities. He often cites them as evidence of Democratic incompetence and mismanagement. He's been remarkably transparent about his desire to get them off the streets, or at least out of sight. Just a few weeks ago, he signed an executive order that would make it a lot easier for city and state officials to remove homeless people from the streets. Advocates for the homeless quickly condemned that order and criticized it for being regressive. But Trump's crackdown on homeless people and other marginalized groups also serves to further his authoritarian goals. It makes it seem like he's actually doing something to fight crime and clean up the streets, even though he's not doing anything that actually addresses the root causes of homelessness or crime or illegal immigration. It allows him to appear like he's in control, but at the end of the day, he's targeting vulnerable populations who cannot push back and who do not have the resources to go up against the government. Joining me now is the Bishop William Barber, President and Senior Lecturer for Repairers of the Breach. He's also the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign. He's the author of the book, White Poverty, How Exposing Myths About Race and Class Can Reconstruct American Democracy. Bishop, good morning to you. Thank you for being with us. I know Sundays are always exceptionally busy for you. We have seen this before. The homeless and the poor being used as political pawns. They're being threatened with fines and arrest because of their condition and their status. We are watching homelessness, which is already criminalized in most of America, become more criminalized.
Exactly. And because we've had such a long-term a time of not committing ourselves to ridding poverty and low wages, but what Trump is doing is he gets not his policies, that's not what makes him popular, but these phony stances that he takes. So he attacks the homeless as though that's the problem. Now, it's interesting in the quote you read, he said going to centers and getting treatment. If in fact that the treatment was real, that would be something different. But he said that and has that said because he knows how wrong it is. What he's really trying to do, though, is utilize his military. It's two things. Any kind of authoritarianism has to find a way to invoke the military and to test it and to make people give up their resistance to military taking over domestic cities. So he's doing it this way for larger purposes. Secondly, what he's also doing is trying to get people to disregard a moral centerpiece, and that is that we care for the least of these. Bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, that we care for the least of these. He wants to rip that moral center away so that people begin to feel comfortable. And then thirdly, he's trying to get an argument that I hope particularly black mayors and others don't give to him. He wants a race argument. He wants to cover this under, rather than this being an argument against humanity, an argument against his unconstitutional acts, and a focus that he's doing this because his tariffs are failing. He didn't bring down prices and all the other things he promises, but he wants a race argument, Velshi. He wants that. And what I hope folk will say is, it doesn't matter if the folk are black or white or brown. this is wrong. This is wrong against humanity. I hope we will show that when he removes these homeless camps, there are black people in those camps, white people in those camps, brown people in those camps, Native people, veterans, people who lost their jobs for no fault of their own and fell on hard times. We cannot give him this argument. We have to push back and really show that everything he's doing is anti-humanity and anti our fundamental principles in America, from masked men arresting people to now trying to mask the homeless and throw them away and claim that you've created a solution when all you've done is created another problem.
Well, you talk about fighting this. You after the White House announced the takeover of the D.C. police, you posted on X, "Don't fall for the race bait with Trump's takeover of D.C. The problem isn't that he's abusing presidential power and creating a crisis to justify sending troops to a black city. The problem is he's undermining democracy for all people. We need a fusion movement to non-violently resist this madness. Black-only responses play into the divide and conquer tactics of this regime. We need moral resistance that calls all of us to a higher ground." You and I have talked about this for years, right? When you talk about poverty from the perspective of race, you miss the point that it's a divide and conquer. I think you've told me once it's the same boot on everybody's neck. But what does a fusion movement look like right now?
Well, it looks like the residents in D.C. that went in the street. If you look at the resistance, they were all races, creeds, and color because they recognize it. It looks like those who are willing to say, this is the racial impact. This is the class impact. This is the impact on black people, brown people. It looks like us pointing out why he's not going to cities that may be under so-called Republican control that are in worse shape. It looks like, how in the world can you say you care about the homeless when you just cut 16 million people from Medicare and your bill, big, deadly, ugly bill, is going to cause 51,000 people to die? You have to come together and criticize and stand against the totality of what he's doing. In addition, we're here in Mississippi. We're not starting Moral Monday in the South. We're going directly to every senator that has voted for this big, ugly, deadly bill with caskets, black and white and brown people. Tomorrow, all women, because tomorrow is the anniversary of the winning of the 19th Amendment. So we're going right to their offices and making them own the policy death, the policy violence that they do not want to do. You can never defeat authoritarianism with just big macro efforts. You need macro efforts, but you have to go micro. Yep. You have to point out the people that are upholding this foolishness and this unjust, evil, I would say, actions on the American people.
Bishop, thank you, sir, for your time this morning. The Bishop William Barber is the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign. He's the president and senior lecturer for Repairers of the Breach.